Blowback ended with with a very unexpected ending, and because of that ending, whatever happened in the end of Blowback, Iqbal is he is in a very bad space mentally and emotionally, and that is the space with which book 4 begins. Book 4 is called Tanzeem, and book 4 actually takes the story back to 1979. So although it was the last book, book 4 brings out the genesis of the jihad. It talks about the Russian entry into Afghanistan, what happened, how the Mujahideen groups came into play, how a person called the Amir, which is the commander of the faithful, Amirul Mu'min, which is the commander of the faithful, he takes over the jihadi groups. He becomes the focal point. And then the complete book is a race between him and Iqbal. Iqbal, who's out to destroy him, and he who is about to put together the largest umbrella of terrorist organizations and plan the largest terrorist attack ever. So that Tanzeem was aimed at bringing out the history of terrorism, and also it gives you a glimpse of what lies ahead 10 years from now in Pakistan, and because of that in Afghanistan and India, because the menace will spread. It gives you a glimpse of what will happen. And again, unfortunately, because the ending has to be unexpected, I cannot talk about the ending. But Tanzeem is basically a race between these. Now, what I had mentioned earlier when I was talking about Salim must die, you know, it is important to understand the historical construct. Why is Pakistan poking its nose so much into Afghanistan? It is because of the Durand Line. The Durand Line had an expiry, it has a validity of 100 years. So somewhere in the mid-90s, or was it late 95, 98, I'm forgetting now, it expired. Now, the Durand Line had ceded parts of Afghan territory, including the warm water port of Gwadar, and given it to Pakistani control. When the line, the validity expired, Gwadar port and those parts of northwestern frontier province should go back to Afghanistan. Now, obviously, Pakistan is very reluctant to let go of the port and that territory, which is why it needs to ensure that somebody sitting in Afghanistan owes their allegiance to Islamabad. And here I would like to mention the beautiful part. The Taliban, which was very heavily sponsored and aided and abetted by Pakistan, even they refused to ratify the Durand Line. Despite all their friendliness with Islamabad, Mullah Omar did not ratify the Durand Line when the Taliban was in power, because he also knew what it means to Afghanistan. That is one of the major reasons why Pakistan will never allow peace to settle in Afghanistan, because they stand to lose that. It's a very simple thing. And most people are not aware of it, and it was things like this which I want to bring out in Tanzeem. So there is a proper full-fledged HR manual. It teaches you how to hire. Firstly, what to look for. Okay, they don't have a class on interviewing skills, but they know the ideal recruit who can beat the profiling. They know how to hire him. They know what to do to subvert him. They know how to train him. It spells out the procedure completely. Simple things I'll tell you. When the Americans started launching Predator strikes, the drone strikes, the Pakistan-based terrorist groups realized they could not put together large terrorist camps the way they have done it in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So along the Afghan border, they started conducting training, 4 or 5 people at a time, inside houses, so that they cannot be picked up. This is how technology and terrorism is always in a race. One wants to beat the other. So this is how it happens. So all this is outlined there. When they realized that their electronic communications were being intercepted, they started using human couriers. You call a guy, recite a message to him, make him learn it by heart and send him out. Now even if he is caught, he's got nothing on him. You don't know what's in his head, right? So unless you really know that he's a courier, you can't even get it out from him. You won't know that he's carrying it. That's how they have used, going back to the Stone Ages, to beat technology. And it works. Do I think there is a different way? Of course there is. Do I hope it will end up differently? I certainly hope it will end up differently, because the way things are headed right now, it's going to be really bad. It's going to be really bad. So I definitely hope things will end up differently. I definitely hope somebody will enter Terror Central and nip this problem in the bud. But as long as any country in the world is allowing terrorists, known terrorists, people who have got Interpol arrest warrants and red corner alerts issued for them, as long as any country is allowing them the freedom to stand up on a public stage and give television talks, collect funds, this problem will not go away. Which is why I definitely hope it will end differently. I never know what I'm planning on a day-to-day basis, because I got this whole load of ideas happening. It should be the end of the story. So there's Tom Clancy, there's Fawcett. Fawcett is amazing. I mean, you see that book, Day of the Jackal, till today, nobody has come up with a better assassination novel. So these guys are iconic, and they are iconic because they followed a couple of very common sense rules, like I mentioned. Keeping the story in motion, keeping it fast, giving you enough data, yet not too much. So I used to read a lot of Clancy and Fawcett and Ludlum, Lee Childs. Having said that, since I started writing thrillers myself, I have stopped reading thrillers completely. I am actually now reading young adult fiction, because I want to be very careful to ensure that their language, ideas and thoughts do not cross over into my books. So I'm not reading Mills and Boon, but I'm reading anything other than that, and other than thrillers. And I'm reading a lot of young adult fiction. I find it fascinating. It is actually adding volumes to my language and the way I use it, because their language is purer. For young adults, normally the language is purer, which helps, because mine is pretty rough at times. And so that's what I'm reading these days. See, a thriller is different from any other genre because of several reasons. One is, you can begin a literary fiction book, take space, a couple of chapters to build up the backdrop, to create the canvas on which your characters are going to play and you're going to bring out the story. But when a person picks up a thriller, the thriller has to be moving from page 1, line 1. You have to capture the reader in motion and keep him in motion throughout. That is one part of the challenge. This challenge goes up geometrically, because if you're writing a military action thriller, then you have to bring in military technology, which means you have to apprise the reader with enough about the weapon systems and the strategy and the tactics without boring them. Now if I started, let's say I have to describe a drone weapon system, and if I spend 6 pages in explaining to you how a drone works and what is the height, weight and size, you would be skipping those pages without any doubt. So the trick is to put in enough that they get a mental picture and it doesn't slow down the narrative. That's always a challenge. 1, finding the technical data. 2, putting it in a way that it becomes a seamless part of the story. Okay, so an action thriller is definitely a different construct, and it is one of the toughest genres to write. I mean, I've written in 3-4 other genres, and compared to action thrillers, I find those a cakewalk. I can actually, the amount of time I spend researching an action thriller, I can finish off another kind of in any other genre, same page length, same word length. That's how difficult it becomes. And keeping the climax unexpected is the other one. You know, you have to have all the elements of drama and mystery which are there in a crime thriller, except that in an action thriller, the criminal is known right from page 1. So it's like a football match. You know, they're pushing this side, then they're pushing this side. You know who's fighting whom, you know why they are fighting. That's why creating an unexpected end becomes so much more challenging and fun. It's great fun writing one. You know, my advice is only one sentence. Separate the what from the how. First, be very clear about what you are going to say. Then you can experiment with the how. Now, I'll give you an example. I know what I'm going to say because I have finished the outline of my book. Okay? In every chapter, I know who's going to do what and how they are going to do it. Right? Now, I write each chapter 3 to 4 times from different angles, maybe from different viewpoints. Let's say there are 3 people in the chapter. I will actually experiment writing that chapter from all 3 viewpoints to see which one is working the best, not for my ego, for that book. So it gives me tremendous latitude to have fun, widen my mental horizon, and play around with the point of view till I get what I believe is the best one for that book. That is my advice to people. Separate the what and the how, and you will actually have a lot of fun, and you will not take too long to finish your book. Otherwise, it's going to be a 5-year plan.